live with all of you. I rarely go on here live, but here I am. I'm going to wait just a minute or so to see if people come on. I know that I didn't make this known that I was going to go live, so I'll wait a second. I am really excited to be here live with all of you. Hi, Laurent. Hi, Coralie. Hi, Marka. Hi, Erica. It's good to see you guys. So I am really excited because what I've decided is that I'm going to go live more often. Basically, I'm going to be going live. Hi, Edwin. Once a week or so, I'm going to start going live on Thursday mornings. And the reason is because I've been talking with a lot of people about coming back into our day-to-day, right? Things are opening up more for people around the world. We're starting to socialize more, hang out with friends more than we have in the last year. And it can feel intimidating. It can feel awkward and something that we used to do all the time, which is hang out with our friends and communicate with other people, now may be feeling just a bit different. And so each week I'm really going to be popping on just to talk to this and to give some tips and to give feedback to you guys on how to, start kind of making your way back into socializing again in terms of your communication. So today I wanted to just touch on some of the reasons why it's hard for us to communicate in general, right? Hi, Melanie. It's so good to connect with you. So I wanted to just talk a little about why we struggle with communication, because it's not often that we think about how we're interacting or how we're communicating and why it is hard, right? Most of the time, it's just really easy for us to get down on ourselves for saying things that we didn't mean to say, or, not connecting with those most important to us in a way that we respect or that feels good. So it's much easier for us to get upset at ourselves for the way that we're connecting instead of potentially looking at why we are struggling with communication. And just to let you know, we all struggle with communication. This isn't something that one person has got down from the beginning when they were born, because like I say often, we don't ever learn how to communicate. We learn how to speak, right? We learn how to talk. And so we believe that because we know how to talk, we know how to communicate, but there's not a class in school, or at least I would never experience it. And most of the students that we work with in the Cane Intentional Communication Training Program have not gone through a class growing up around how to communicate in a kind, honest, and helpful way, how to express yourself in a way that you're heard by others, or how to express yourself even if you are fearing the reaction of what the other person may say, right? And the reason for that is that we believe because we know how to talk, we know how to communicate. Though this is why we struggle with communication, because it is a learned skill, and that is so amazing about it. What's so incredible about it is that it is a learned skill, which pretty much means that you can learn how to communicate at any time. So even if right now it feels like you're struggling and you're not really able to share the things closest to you with those that are most important to you, or, you're in a work environment and you're having difficulty with an employee or an employer, and you really want to understand how things can change or how to express yourself so things can change, the beauty of this is that you can learn how to make that happen for yourselves. It's not a lost cause because it is a learned behavior. So today I just want to talk a little bit about why we struggle with communication, why it's hard for us. And, one of the reasons, there's really 5 reasons why we struggle with communication. And one, it's how we're designed. So to react is really to be human, right? This is how we are designed. Our bodies are designed for a stress response. Our nervous system right? We are designed to react, meaning if you are in a difficult conversation, if you are in an uncomfortable conversation, you enter that stress response. So cortisol is just pumping through your body, and that is when you enter into that kind of fight, flight, freeze mode, which I really call your default reaction, right? So you either shut down, you get passive aggressive, you lash out, you dodge the situation, you walk away from the situation, right? So this is all to protect yourself. This is just human nature. This is when we were, in the wilderness being chased by tigers, and that's wonderful. Though what happens for us is that even the mind can create that sensation for us, right? Even deadlines can create that sensation for us. So in those difficult moments, what's happening is you're using your default reaction to truly protect yourself in that moment. And that is a part of being human, right? Is just this stress response that we go through. So in those moments, there's absolutely no way for you to access any calm. You want to, right? You're having a heated discussion, you're feeling really uncomfortable, and you can tell in your body, and you really don't want to be mean to the person who's in front of you, or you don't want to go into kind of feeling like a child and acting in a childish way. But we can't not do that. We can't not do that because we don't know how, right? We don't know how to access calm in that moment. And so that's one of the reasons why we struggle with communication, because we can't access ourselves in those moments that are heated or in those moments that are uncomfortable. And so instead, what we do is we default to a way that is to protect ourselves. And that way we believe is helpful, that default is helpful, but it truly isn't, right? It creates more disconnection. I mean, if you just think about the last time that you went into being passive aggressive or you went into lashing out, did that create more connection for you, right? The likelihood is no, it didn't create more connection for you. It probably created more disconnect, right? But that is just where we naturally go. So to react is human. That's one of the reasons why we struggle with communication, right? The second reason that we struggle with communication is that we aren't taught, right? I mentioned this before, but we're not taught how to communicate. It is something that we absorb, meaning as we are growing up, we see our parents in the way that they interact with each other. We see our friends in the way they interact with each other. We watch movies, we read books, we see different characters and different situations, and all of that we just absorb. And so if you think about it now, the majority of your interactions, how you're connecting with people, may look like the way that your parents communicate, right? Or your siblings communicate. And that again is because we're not taught this behavior. It's just something that we absorb, right? And we learn what we're modeled, basically. And that is not to say that we need to get down on what we were modeled. We don't need to judge it or be upset by it. It's just a matter of knowing that it in my mind, it's something actually to celebrate, because you get to then see, oh, that doesn't have to be the way that I interact. That doesn't have to be my communication pattern. I can do the work to change this. I can practice changing the way that I'm connecting with people. That doesn't have to be mine. So the way I see this is that it's something to celebrate, as opposed to something to, get upset at our families for, or get upset at, our teachers for, or how things were modeled for us. So the ways that we can kind of move ourselves out of this is that we just let go of ways of communicating that aren't ours, or we decide what type of communicator we actually want to be. And then we identify what types of relationships we want to cultivate at home and at work, right? So we're not stuck necessarily in what we've known, but we actually get this opportunity to think differently and be able to say, oh, I could potentially change that. So what do I want my interactions to look like? as opposed to just sitting and thinking that it is the way that it is and it has to stay this way. The third reason that we struggle with communication is because we see communication in isolation. So we see it as one piece, right? A lot of students will say, well, I just need to learn how to speak. And yes, right? Speaking is a big part of the way that we communicate. Though if you learn to speak and you haven't learned how, let's say, to listen to yourself, you might be speaking in a way that somebody is not going to hear at all. You might be speaking in a way that is completely confusing for somebody else, that gets them very distracted and focused on what you don't want them to focus on, right? So we often see communication in isolation. I just need to learn how to listen. I just need to learn how to speak, right? When truly speaking itself, it is a process. It is a practice, right? We struggle with communication because we see it as a tick the box type of thing, right? You have businesses that do communication training courses. You constantly hear about effective communication. And it's like, well, if I take this class and I check this box, then I know how to be, what is the term that people use all the time? Active listening, right? In the work that we do, we don't use that phrase, active listening, but it's like that, right? There's specific kind of key phrases that you've heard about communication because it's taught really in isolation, or as like a tick the box thing. But what ends up happening is that the majority of students that come to us, they say, I know everything. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I can't do it, right? So that's when you know that there's something off, because you have to be able to embody a way of communicating to actually be able to communicate. It's like, people will say, well, just pause, just take a breath. It's like, that's phenomenal. I love that, because that's true. Yes, we want to pause, we want to take a breath. But how do you actually get to the point where you can pause and you can take a breath? There is a process and a practice that has to happen for the pause and the breath to be, right? So we struggle with communication because we see it in isolation. We see it as something that's happening to us. If you look at your relationships or your interactions, no matter where you look at them, just start to notice, are you on the receiving end of them, right? Does it feel like communication happens to you as opposed to it being a part of our everyday lives? Meaning, in meetings, you are communicating, you are having interaction, you are having dialogue, you are discussing, you are presenting an idea, right? When you are at home in your relationship, you're having a conversation about, finances or childcare. For some reason, we don't see that as communication. We don't see that as a priority. We don't see that as a part of our everyday. We see communication, like I mentioned before, as like outside of us, happening to us, meaning like it's a training that you have to tick the box for work environment, or we don't see it as actual dialogue, as what is happening right now between us, right? This is communication. So that's the other reason why we struggle with it, because we don't see it as a part of our day to day. We don't see it as a part of our everyday. And so instead, what we want to do is we want to first see it as a holistic process, not as just speaking, not as just listening. And we want to see that it is actually within our control, meaning that it is not happening to us, that we don't have to be on the receiving end of conversation, but that we can actually be the one to step in and lead the conversation or guide the conversation. And for us to start seeing it as a way of living, as something that you practice intentionally, just like you would practice, just like you would go to the gym, or just like you would choose to eat healthy. It's the same idea of seeing communication in that way, right? The fourth way that we struggle with communication, or the reason we struggle with communication, is because we don't prioritize it. It's a little bit about what I was just saying, right? We read a book, and then what happens after you read the book? Or where does all that knowledge go, right? we don't prioritize it or see it as something that is going to change our family dynamics, improve our relationships with our children, create more connection and intimacy within our relationships, potentially, move us up in our career or be able to, manage more than 2 people, but maybe potentially manage 50 people, right? So instead, we want to kind of put our communication up there with working out or eating healthy, and we want to implement what we're learning about communication, focusing really on what it's going to bring into your life and change in your relationships. We can sit in the struggle all day long. I mean, I can list off many pain points of not being able to communicate in the way that we want to. And so much of it, what it ends up with is just continuing to sit in this state of suffering, meaning doubt, anxiety, fear, just letting everything kind of build up within you, and then you can't hold it in anymore. And then you're resentful, and then you blame, and you're angry and you're upset. And all of these emotions are valid. It's not about not feeling those. It's about not living those, right? So the last reason that we struggle with communication is that we don't have a practice. We just wing it. We do what we've always done, and we expect a different outcome. And all that does is just lead to more suffering for ourselves and for others. And so, instead, it's more about really learning how to speak with intention, really thinking about how you want to show up in your relationships, how you want to show up with your communication. What is the purpose of communicating for you? And just practicing daily to have that intention of, today I am going to, practice, being helpful. Today I'm going to practice listening. Today I'm going to practice speaking to only what's necessary. And by doing that, you bring purpose to your interactions. You bring purpose to your words. Our words are so powerful. They're so powerful. They have the ability to create. They have the ability to create, to bring more love, to bring more peace, to bring more joy, to bring more excitement, to bring more adventure. Or they have the ability to cause the complete opposite, right? And harm and be hurtful and destroy and incite. And so we get this amazing opportunity at every moment to choose which way we want to go with our language. And to be able to reach that place, though, where you're in that place where you're able to choose, it is a holistic process to reach that point, right? Again, it's not a learn how to speak, learn how to listen. There is an actual practice and process that goes through you to be able to understand that you are at the place where you can choose and then choose a different way. So I'm happy that I got to spend this time with you today. I hope that this was a little helpful for you as kind of the world starts opening up a little more and you're starting to get back into, hanging out with people and socializing and going out to eat, going to bars, whatever it looks like for you as things start to open up, right? And I'm excited to share more with you guys around how to make it easier for you as you come back into just connecting more with people, because taking a year and some off from being in social situations can create anxiety. It can create a lot of doubt and feeling just awkward in larger groups and, connecting. So now is a great time to just start paying attention to how you interact. And if you want to learn more about our work, definitely check us out. We have the Kane Intentional Communication Training Program, where we work with people directly to help them really create more peace in their lives so that they show up authentically in their most important relationships. And then also on the 24th of June, I'll be doing an intro event where I'm going to share with you how to move out of overwhelm and into feeling more confident in your interactions. And I'll do communication breakthrough sessions. So I'll get to work with some of you within the event to help you move through what's coming up for you with your communication. And then I'll share more about the training program with everybody on the 24th of June. If you can't make it live, not a problem. It's recorded and you get access to that. So any questions, reach out to us directly. You can just direct message me here on Instagram, or check out our link in the bio and you can find us that way. And again, I'll be popping on more, doing lives Thursday mornings. I might come on other times too. And yeah, so lots of love. Mwah.